Welcome back to the Reier on YouTube channel, where it is time once again for No Sleep TEAL. Travis Reier, joined by my co-host Evan Reier. We talk Jacksonville Jaguars right here on the channel. Evan, so how about the 2025 draft? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Travis Hunter, get on the train. No, I mean, really, that's you got to look forward because looking backwards doesn't look really great right now. Past, I mean, 10 weeks, 11 weeks has been brutal, but at the same time, what can you do? I mean, it is what it is at this point, and yeah, I'm enjoying thinking about the NFL draft. I've been watching a bunch of
Yeah,
college football this year, so
that's the great thing. You and I watch a ton of college football.
yeah.
So there's always that light at the end of the tunnel for us during a season like this. We're kind of watching games and going, hey, maybe that's the guy or two that can help turn this thing around in Jacksonville. Or maybe that light of the tunnel is just another train coming,
Yeah.
Evan, in the form of maybe the best team in the NFL this week up on tap for the
Oof.
Jaguars, the Detroit Lions up in the Motor City. Ev?
Yeah, not just the Detroit Lions, but a road trip to face the Lions too. And kind of, what's funny, for teams that are really good like that, the teams that scrape away these W's after such a emotional kind of comeback win over the Texans last weekend. You're this is kind of a, oh well, maybe they're recovering. Maybe they're a little out of gas or whatever. Well, when you're playing a team of the Jaguars quality, it doesn't really matter if you're out of gas. You're probably just, it's almost like a bye week of sorts. I hate to be that disrespectful, but I mean, really, with the state that the Jaguars are in, and especially, I don't know, we love Mac Jones to death, but that wasn't the most
That
encouraging
was that was
performance
rough. That was rough last
last
Sunday.
weekend. There's not a whole lot of hope in terms of going up there, but hey, Jarian Jones is going to get some good reps. Jared Goff threw 5 picks last weekend, so maybe this is,
That's even more concerning though, because he threw
yeah.
5 picks and they still won in Houston.
And the
That's how
Jaguars
that's how
intercepted,
good they are.
and the
Yeah, and the
Jaguars got
Jags,
3 interceptions last
yeah,
Sunday and couldn't get
and
the win.
lost.
So,
Now gave
uh,
up 3 turnovers there in the final
yeah,
moments, but kind of even things out. But yeah, that game last Sunday at Everbank kind of felt like a night out with the bros where you start fast, and everybody's yeah, 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 and
yeah,
then you go hard early, and then by about 11, everybody's kind of looking at each other like, well, that I may have run out of gas a little early because there was a lot of palpable energy, good energy in that stadium after the Jags went down. Mac looked good early. The offense looked good. Go up 7-0. The defense is getting off the field, forcing turnovers, and you're thinking, hey, maybe this thing's going to end up being a 17-14, 17-13. Even at 7-0, I wasn't thinking, oh, wow, this is the coming out party for the Jaguars offense, because still this offense isn't really built that way. And you still
yeah.
have some absences on that side of the ball that just aren't going to allow you to do that. But man, those final 3 quarters, all the
Brutal.
energy that came up to the surface there in the first half or 2/3 of that first quarter just got sucked out of that stadium. Even though the Jags were still ahead into the fourth quarter, it just had that inevitability sense to it, that it wasn't a question of if, it was just more of a question of when the Vikings would eventually take control or win that football game.
It continues to be. I've said this in recent weeks, but the Jaguars seem to get everybody on like a bad week. I mean, maybe the Jaguars are better than I'm giving them credit for. They lose all these close games, but it seems like every team we've played that is pretty good, like the Vikings, they don't show up like at their best, but the
That was the
Jaguars
Sam
just can't.
Darnold from the Jets. I mean, they
Yeah.
got New York Jets Sam Darnold, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, that's all you're asking for in terms of having a chance to win. If you can get that kind of situation where, the Vikings, I mentioned how much I like Aaron Jones last week. He still had like 80 something yards or whatever, but overall, really solid play from the defense. I mean, probably maybe their best performance of the year. If we're going to give credit, anywhere, I do think the defense overall was about as good as we've seen them. But like you said, something just after that opening script, the Jaguars had no idea what to do with Mac Jones. Part of it is Mac Jones definitely missed some throws, definitely, has played better in his NFL career. But yeah, in general, there was just complete, kind of breakdown because the running game wasn't going either.
No, that was not going. You had a couple of decent runs by ETN in the game, I guess, but certainly nothing overly explosive and just the lack of explosive plays in general on offense. And kind of going back to what you talked about with Mac Jones, I still really haven't figured out if that was mostly due to Mac and his inabilities, or was it part of the plan that, look, if we get up early, we're going to try to keep this thing tight, keep it really sort of training wheeled through the game and give ourselves a chance in the fourth quarter. Now, defensively, I agree. I can't really pick too much at that side of the ball, other than to say, yes, that there were the takeaways, and points are what matter. You give up
Yeah.
12 points in the National Football League, you should win the game. But the sustained drives by Minnesota took a lot of clock
Yeah.
off the game. That said, the takeaways gave you extra possessions on the offensive side, which the Jags took zero advantage of. 3 takeaways, 0 points off takeaways. Typically, when there's that sort of equation there, it doesn't work out all that well.
No, it doesn't. Really, the Jaguars have struggled to score off the few turnovers they had produced to this point all season. Um, and it's another thing where you're just kind of letting, you're snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. It's they were given a game to win here, and it feels like that's
It's like
happened.
Philadelphia. I mean, it was
Yeah,
almost like the previous week, and we can talk about Mac, but Trevor was in that same situation down 5, and what happened? Threw the pick,
nothing.
just
Yeah,
like Mac down the
I
stretch.
I will
So
say I was singing throughout, especially towards the end of the game, when Mac, made a couple pretty significant mistakes,
sure he
that
did.
I was singing, how much better would Trevor have been in that situation. I do think the Jaguars probably score more points if
Yeah.
Trevor's the quarterback. Um, I wasn't one of those people. There were people online that were saying like, all right, do y'all understand that Trevor is actually like because of that game in particular that
Well,
Trevor
relative to the
is
Jaguars, yeah.
yeah,
But I'm
yeah,
not basing my Trevor comps on the Jaguars or the
right,
Jaguars backup quarterback. I base my Trevor comps on the top quarterbacks in the league,
exactly.
because that's what he is supposed to be at this point in his development and based on his new contract.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going that far at all, but I was seeing that. But I mean, don't get it twisted. If you want a reminder, sometimes that it can always be worse. There's definitely worse quarterbacks to have than Trevor.
Oh
And
yeah,
who knows?
good quarterback.
I'm not condemning Mac for the rest of the season or whatever because Mac is more than likely going to be the quarterback the rest of the year. Uh,
It's feeling
at
that
this
way, isn't it?
stage. I mean, with the AC joint that Trevor's dealing with, it sounds like it's more significant than they initially thought. He's going to have to get surgery more than likely. Um, you know, I'm definitely, I said this last week, shut him down. Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
not worry about
You
making things
did.
worse. There's nothing to play for at this point. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a situation where I don't know. It's hard to get on Mac too much because first start of the year, first real game time of the year, but at the same time, definitely a performance to forget. So
And at least they scored in the first,
yeah, that's true.
couple of quarters of the football game.
They
That
scored
was
the only
actually,
touchdown of the damn game.
yeah, in the first quarter.
Yeah,
No, I mean, Mac, again, he has his inadequacies, we'll call it. And maybe that's why we didn't see Brian Thomas Jr. or the ball really being pushed down the field all that
right.
much. I think part of it too is I don't think Press and or Doug thought they could protect Mac.
Yeah.
with the pass rush well enough with the situations that you have in that offensive line right now. It just felt like again the training wheels were really on the offense. Just don't lose the game, and if we for as long as we can just stay in this thing, we're going to be pretty simple and basic and close to the vest. But boy, when you can't run the football like they can't or they couldn't on Sunday, then you put even more on that passing game that just isn't there right now. And then, it just seemed appropriate in some ways at the end of the game. The sort of miscommunication between Mac and Gabe. I mean, because he hasn't been online all year. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that was his fault. I know there's been this sort of social media breakdown because of Doug's comments post game about the media wouldn't get it. That was so tight, though. I mean, that was tight. How he just
This
browbeat
man
the
does not
media.
want to coach. This man really, really wants to get fired so bad. And that's not that you can disrespect the media all day. We know how this
Right,
works. That doesn't
right.
get you fired,
No,
in top level football. But the just clear, like I could be on a, I could
beach
be in my beach house in Miami.
like
I
a
could be,
Corona commercial, right?
yeah, dude.
Yeah.
He wants to be with Eli, sitting on the beach, cracking open a cold one.
Snoop Dogg, yeah,
Yeah,
the whole
because
thing.
he's clocked out.
Well,
Um,
we talk about that, and it'll be so Jags this week when Matt goes like 23 for 28 for 374 and four
right.
touchdowns. It'll
Yeah.
just totally flip everything upside down. Wait a minute.
We
It'll
actually
be the
see something
most.
to build on here.
Hey, it'll be the most Jags thing. I don't think that'll happen in all seriousness,
No,
but
the thing they need to build on is the only All Pro performance we saw again this past week, which is Logan Cook, 4 punts
my man,
within the 20. He
balling
continues to be the man.
him and
Um,
Cam Little. I mean,
Dude, yeah, special
those
teams,
are the
man. It continues to be the only like sparkle in this team right now.
Logan has been just unbelievable. I saw someone tweet, "It's a crime if this guy isn't in the Pro Bowl." No, it's a crime if he isn't All Pro,
Now he's the best
All
punter in the
Pro,
NFL.
not just Pro Bowl, right? Not just the AFC representative as the punter in the Pro Bowl games or whatever the hell it is now, but All Pro. He's been that good. And you know what else you got coming up this week in Detroit? Jake Bates and Cam Little were teammates at Arkansas once upon a time.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that.
Yes, 2022, Jake Bates had kicked at Texas State, transferred. Jake Bates was actually a soccer player at Central
Right.
Arkansas, then kicked at Texas State, then went to Arkansas for 2022. Cam Little was a sophomore and had established himself as the place kicker, but Jake Bates was actually the kickoff guy. So, how about that for a tandem? You've
Yeah,
got Cam Little as your field goal extra point guy and Jake Bates as your kickoff guy. So, you're going to have
that
a couple
is
of
that
those
is nuts.
specialists.
I
Yeah.
gotta. I said this on Twitter, but I got to give Jake Bates some credit for the style points on both those field goal makes. He cut it so tight on both of
Oh,
those, as dramatic as you
football
could
football
possibly
had
make it.
some football had some yellow paint on it a couple
Yeah, dude,
times
that
on both
first one clipped
sides.
it for sure. Yeah,
Both sides of the
uh,
ball had yellow paint on it on those
but
uprights, didn't
hey,
it?
I know it doesn't matter, but I love watching the Texans lose, so I'm very appreciative for that. Uh, now,
And the Lions tried to do the Jags a solid,
yeah, they
but
did.
doesn't matter
Yeah,
anymore.
in another world, it would have mattered, but not in the one we are
Yeah,
currently in.
yeah.
Um,
And the previous world, we thought this week would be like 6-4 Jags going up to
yeah, prove
Detroit,
it. Yeah, prove it
maybe a
game.
Super
Kind of
Bowl
how real are
preview.
you?
Yeah. How about some positives though? And you talked about it with this defense and some guys that folks have been pretty rough on because they were free agent acquisitions. But Ronald Darby, Darnell Savage, was that the best we've seen them this season against Minnesota last week?
As a total group, absolutely. I mean, really, I would say that other than kind of a pretty anonymous day from the defensive line in terms of pass rush,
Pass
I mean,
rush,
Trayvon Walker still got there on one. Nice to see
yeah.
that he's continuing that pace. But really, I mean, they hit Darnold 3 times total, and that's not enough, really. It's one
It
thing if you're
seemed
not
like
getting.
the Vikings had success doing what the Jaguars wanted to do, and that was getting the ball out quick. I mean, they
Yeah, no,
tight end and running back because Justin Jefferson really wasn't a
uh,
problem in the
yeah, he
game.
wasn't a huge factor. They shut him down
But
for the most part.
death by 1,000 cuts on those sustained drives, man. And it was
Yeah.
also like we talked about before, it just seems like these opposing offenses are in these manageable situations on second down over and over, second and 4, second and 5. And then NFL, that's huge, right?
Oh yeah, staying above the chains or whatever, staying
Yeah,
keeping forward,
on
making it
schedule. Yeah.
manageable. No, they the Vikings. That's what they're all about. At the end of the day, you could say that the Vikings had plenty of frustrations when it comes to Sam Darnold throwing 3 picks, all that different stuff. But in general, that is what the Vikings are looking to do to set up Sam Darnold to be able to make those deeper throws and do all that. And while he wasn't successful in that, they were still getting whatever really they needed to be able to just keep drives alive. And that's frustrating to as anything. I feel like overall though the Jaguars preventing big shots and different stuff like that. That is the reason why this game was close because it's not just Justin Jefferson you have to worry about. Jordan Addison's really been finding it over the course of this
Hmm.
year. Both those guys can light you up deep. So to keep them limited is very impressive. I think in total we were looking at like 75 yards between those two
Hmm.
guys. You definitely take that every day of the week, and that does bring up. I will say this is probably the first like Tyson Campbell performance that it's at the level you were expecting him to perform
Hmm.
at. This is probably the best we've seen since early 2023. I was pretty impressed with Tyson overall. I thought Andre Cisco actually had a better game than what we've seen recently, uh, but still just not ideal. And it's cool for Buster Brown to get one. He's been having a
Yeah.
pretty tough year. So for him to be able to get, an INT is nice as well.
You talked about Aaron Jones last week too for the Vikings. I think he averaged about 5 a clip. So the
Yeah.
Vikings ran the ball well enough, especially between the tackles. And, Jags played more zone than I think
Yep.
we've seen in a lot of weeks from a Ryan Nielsen defense, which plays into that bend but don't break and red zone efficiency, defensively able to take the ball away a couple of times down there. But it also leaves you a little vulnerable to the run game. I think Cam Akers a couple of times helped the Jags because he wouldn't stay between the tackles. Cam kept
Yeah.
wanting to bounce it, whereas Aaron was more patient and willing to kind of stay inside and take those 6, 7, 8 yards. That's been problematic for this Jaguar defense. But as we talked about, really hard to pick too much at the Jags on that side of the ball because the NFL is a bottom line game. And it all goes back to points, time of possession. Yeah, it was massively in favor of the Vikings, but the offense for the Jags had something to do with that. I mean, when you're not staying on the field offensively, obviously that's going to play in to that situation as well. So when you think about Detroit this weekend, Ev, can you give us any glimmer of hope to think that this Jaguar team, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility for the game to be competitive because that hasn't been the problem
N-
for the Jags
Yeah.
this season.
No, I mean, I think I do think that this game is again very similar to some of the games recently. Although there's been different offensive identities, it continues to be force the quarterback to throw the ball. Jared Goff is a very good quarterback, but as we saw last week, very very capable of mistakes, and he clearly was pressing a lot last week. Some of those, like that fourth interception, especially threw it to nobody, just threw it like 60 yards. Um, if you can frustrate that offense in the running game, which is much easier said than done, Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery, that's about as good as a tandem as you can ask for.
Thunder and
Um,
lightning.
you
Yeah.
have to stop. You have to stop them first, and the Jaguars have kind of been able to do that with these really good running games recently, at least preventing them from going, absolutely bonkers. Um,
Yeah.
you have to put the game in Jared Goff's hands.
Yeah.
And even with that, you're probably still going to lose. Amon Ross St. Brown, Sam Laporta. I mean, these guys are going to
Jamison
eat
Williams. Yeah.
Jamison Williams, but um, I think that's the really the first step to winning that game. And then the second step is I I cannot handle Tank Bigsby getting 2 handoffs. I cannot handle Brian Thomas Jr. getting 3 targets. If you want to win, if you want to score, you can't just trust Mac Jones to find Gabe Davis or find Brenton Strange consistently. It's got to be put the ball in the hands of your most dynamic weapons and let them try and make a play. Now, like I said, that is on paper, much easier said than done. But for me, you have to put it in your most dynamic player's hands, and that's not Gabe Davis. That is, as much as I like Evan Ingram, that's not Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram should be the guy that you go to on 3rd and 8, and you really need 8 yards across the middle. I get that, but I've got to see more action from BTJ and Tank Bigsby. I know that they're gonna, I guess, exhaust ETN. They're like, look, we're gonna see every last bit of what this guy has
Hmm.
in an important kind of year. But I was screaming for Bixby all game, and they just would not give him the ball.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if maybe he's beat up a little bit. Maybe they've got him on a. I don't know.
Yeah,
But week to week, it's always different. It seems like with running backs in some situations, and this week defensively for the Jags, I think it does start with the Lions' run game. You talked about the two backs, the thunder and lightning approach for the Lions. That offensive line, one of the best in the National Football League. And then when you get it into maybe some obvious pass situations, those two tackles, Panay Sewell, uh, boy, that's going to be fun to watch. Trayvon, Josh Hines Allen working against those guys on the outside. I think this is a continued sort of validation situation, even for some of the Jag star players. And I still think there's some misfits within this scheme and the personnel, like seeing Foye Oluokun play off the ball. I still can't get used to that. To
yeah,
me, he's a Mike, plain and simple. That's why back in training camp, when there was all this talk about Devin Lloyd going to play Mike, I'm like, that seems reversed. Foye is Mike. If there ever was one, he's the green dot. But Ventrell Miller continues to do some good things too. So that's
yeah.
all positive.
Ventrell had another good game. I mean, him and Jarian Jones right now are kind of the hope, the future of this defense in terms of, could do we have any guys that we could see wear the Jaguars uniform for 5, 6, 7, 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's nice, but it's still going to be a tall order for them. I mean, Jameer Gibbs gets an open space. I love Ventrell Miller, but I'm going to take Jameer Gibbs in that battle most of the time.
Yes, against any of the
Um,
Jags linebackers, any of them.
yeah,
I mean,
um,
Gibbs is a 4-3 guy.
yeah,
He's electric for sure.
it's insane. I love getting to watch him in that offense. I mean, really, somebody described it pretty interestingly during that game against the Texans, which the way that Jameer Gibbs is able to get to corners, like get on the outside, it looks like he's still at the college level in terms of speed. He makes NFL defenses look slow, and
Mm-hmm.
those dudes are not slow at all. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. You think about run game, you wonder if Eric Armstead's going to finally have a game. Which I will say,
Not at
speaking of,
end, not at end. He's not. I mean, we
nah, I
saw
mean,
it
did
again.
you?
We saw it against the Vikings. I mean, he's taking this wide rush from the end position
And he's
that kind of makes it look like he's winning, but the tackle is like, "Look, dude, if you want to
all I have
go,
to do is
I don't.
just shove you
You,
around.
yeah, you're not even at the right depth with your pass rush." So no, that's not going to happen. But you talk about pass rushers, no Aiden Hutchinson this week,
Yeah,
but Zadarius Smith, it looks like,
yeah.
will be
Getting
ready to go.
he's gonna open up his Detroit bank account with this game because he did not get to play against the Texans, and he's about to cash out in this one.
Let me ask
Uh,
you this: Walker Little at this point with this sort of audition, like for a handful of these
right.
guys, we can talk about it from that perspective too. Where are you at with the Walker Little audition to this point in terms of 2025 and beyond at one of those tackle spots? Or do you think at this point, just on what we've seen to this point, knowing things could change, that it's probably going to have to be Anton Harrison going over to the left side next year? If you keep Little, maybe the right side, or maybe you're looking at another tackle in the first 4 or 5 picks of this draft, depending on where the Jags end up in that order.
I think I'd give Little, like if I had to give him a letter grade, it'd be like a B minus. So
Okay.
pretty good overall. I mean, really, I've he's had some stinkers, but he's also had some pretty good
Mm-hmm.
performances. Um, I don't know if he's a guy that you can consider to be a year after year marquee tackle. If Anton Harrison was like showing promise of all pro, then maybe I would be more comfortable rocking Little on that other side and just
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, well, you got to have a weak side of the line at some point. Um, but really, what I'd like with Little is for him to kind of be the 1A guy going into
Mm-hmm.
the next like going into training camp next year, and then having your second or third round pick be a guy that's competing with them. Um,
So
you
you're
know,
thinking of franchising Walker Little after this year, maybe
yeah, a little, yeah. I
not
think
extending him or new deal,
right.
maybe hit him with the
I mean,
franchise.
also, I'd be curious. I'd go to the agent and ask, what do you think? Like, what do you want? Because if
Right.
he wants like big money, then you have to let him walk. But I mean, really, what does Walker Little deserve a big payday at this point in time?
Not at
I
this
mean,
point, no.
no. So
But it's
maybe,
all but there's it's kind of like quarterbacks in that market when you start talking
yeah,
about
there's going to
offensive
be another
tackles.
team that will pick him up if the Jaguars aren't willing to pay him. But I don't know. In my ideal situation, we'd have a rookie and Little facing off next training camp for the job, whether that's through the franchise tag or maybe they do like a 2-year deal or something like that, something small.
Yeah.
Because
Prove
if
it
you
deal.
are going to extend him to something and you're not going to pay him a lot of money, it's going to have to be short term or, max 3 years, probably 2 years,
Yeah.
because he's young enough that he can still go get a few more contracts, at
Sure.
least two more. Um, but no, I think I like Little. I really do. I do think he's a very serviceable player, but that's kind of the term serviceable is probably the best way to describe it. He's not great. He's not bad. He's just
Yeah,
fine.
and we still don't
Um,
know about Javon Foster. I mean, seeing him back in training camp,
yeah,
he was a long way away.
yeah,
And they kept him because, well, he was a mid-round pick, and you don't expose mid-round tackles to other teams if you release them. I mean, you obviously have a decent investment in him in terms of draft capital, so you want to see if he's the guy that you scouted him to potentially be. So we'll see about him as well. Those are the things we don't see through the course of a season too, that
yeah. The
could
development.
be happening. I mean, he
Yeah,
may not be to the point yet where you feel like he's one of your two guys, but maybe you're thinking he's close. But the reason why I don't believe that as of this point is because I think the third tackle in right now would be Cole Van Lannon,
yeah,
and not your draft pick from
yeah.
Missouri. So,
Now I'll be curious if they kick the tires on him at all this season. If at some point in the last 3 or 4 games, instead of putting in Van Lennon, it's like, all right, well, let's
you
just
need to
go
find
see
out.
what he's got. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I think this season is basically about at this point. Unfortunately, is you might as well see what you have in the tank as you kind of start to rebuild, and whether that means you're completely clearing house in terms of staff or
Yeah.
if that's just Doug. Either way, you need to see what you
Well,
got.
and that's the
So,
growing anticipation with that upcoming bye week too. Is what does that mean? Because around the league, we're already seeing coordinators
geez.
go. You
Yeah.
know, you've had that happen in Chicago. You've had it happen at some other places. I think there's some anticipation there with that bye week as it relates to Doug or the staff. I think it's pretty clear at this point. Doug probably isn't going to make any changes, and I don't know
Yeah.
if above his pay rate that may come down. So that's why a lot of people have that bye week circle too for the Jags in terms
Well,
of
it's also important that they're playing Detroit this weekend because Shad can meet with Ben Johnson and go ahead and just get the paperwork done
yeah, yeah,
for when this. obviously they won't, be able to grab him mid-season, but they can at least say, okay, Ben,
Yeah.
we've got
Well, you
some,
get it sketched out on a cocktail napkin,
exactly.
and
I would love Ben Johnson, by the way. I think that would be sick. I think
so
his.
the Jags buy is it's next week. They go on the
Oh,
bye
okay, my bad.
after
Not
this. They
Thanksgiving.
play the Texans on December the 1st, just for the sake
Right.
of
Yeah, the following. Yeah,
clarity.
that's my bad.
So after this game on
Yeah,
Sunday, I think
finally getting to the bye week. We
a
can
lot of
reload. We
people
can recover.
are going to be looking at that for sure.
I
No
would.
doubt
I
about it.
mean, teams like to fire guys on bye weeks. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they get, especially if they just get torched in Detroit. Like if we're talking like a 20-point loss or something,
Yeah.
I could see it, but at the same time, Doug gets all like they both everyone in that staff right now kind of gets excuses because of injuries and all that different stuff. So they might just write it out. They might just write it until the end of the
And
year.
here's the thing after the bye week. I mean, they do get the Texans on December 1st, but then they go Titans, Jets, Raiders, Titans, and then Colts on the road. I mean,
Yeah, that's the thing is if it's another
that
thing
five
where
game finish, it was set up. All they had to be was decent. All they had to
yeah
be was around 500.
you could even be 4-6 right now,
Yeah,
and you're looking at
under
that
two games.
thinking, okay, if you're 4-6 and maybe or let's say 5-6 after the Detroit game, you're looking at that final 6 game stretch as okay, we're the masters of our own destiny. We can absolutely win every single one of these games.
And
But no,
that's why like I know the Jags right now at the NFL draft or today they would pick first, but that's why I still don't believe as in my head anyway, I don't see it happening because of those last 5 games or so. I just
no,
don't
I don't.
see them being 2-15. Now maybe they will. I didn't see them being 2-8, but
Yeah,
I see them still winning 2 or 3 more games. And if they do, I don't see them picking first in that scenario.
yeah, me too. I think they probably win two more based on that stretch. I think you'd get at least one against the Tennessee Titans. You might even get two. Um, but and then you probably can pick off one of the Jets, Colts, or Raiders games. And if you get 4 wins, you're not going to have the first overall pick. You'll probably
No.
be a top five, maybe.
Yeah.
You might have fifth or sixth or something like that. But they can avoid the dishonor of being the only NFL team. I don't know if you saw this. The Jags do select first overall. They will be the first ever NFL team to select first 3 times in 5 seasons. No one's ever
Ooh.
had that many first overall picks in 5 years. So, uh, woof.
Yeah.
Let's avoid that if possible. I guess I don't know if I care. Don't know if I care.
No.
I rather just get the best
It's
possible.
just a tough look
Yeah.
when you go out and extend your stars
Right.
like the Jags did, whether it was Josh Hines Allen or Tyson Campbell or especially your quarterback to the
Trevor
tune
Lawrence.
that the Jaguars did, and you're in rebuild mode. Now, I don't think it's to that extent. This is just more of a bad season. Then I still think it is just a deplorable football team in terms of talent, but there's obviously issues that have to be rectified, and I do think it's salvageable even for 2025. I don't see it as like the Panthers or something
Right.
like that right now. But it is a bad look. I mean, you go out and you take care of your guys, and then the perception is, well, you're back into a rebuild.
The thing is that even though they don't have to do a complete teardown rebuild situation, they still over these next two drafts, no matter who comes in to coach this team, they have to, if you want to hit the next level in the NFL right now, you have to draft out of your mind. You cannot free agency, veteran signings and stuff. Those are not what takes a team
And they're still not, as an organization, an attractive situation for a lot of the free agents
that's part of
that you
it too.
want.
It's like
You
nobody
know,
wants to come here.
you've got street free agents right now that probably aren't signing with the Jags, even though they don't have jobs, because maybe they think they can sign with a playoff contender during the season. Because then, if they're with a playoff contender who makes the playoffs, then they get playoff bonus money too. You're
Yeah.
not getting that in Jacksonville. So it's tough every day for the Jags right now in terms of personnel
I
acquisition, in
just
terms of the guys they really would like to have.
to kind of, add to my point about that, like, so the Lions, obviously, Jared Goff was he's coming from the Rams, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta,
Brian
uh,
Branch.
Penny Sewell,
Brian Branch
uh,
is an all-pro DB in the second
Brian
round
Branch,
that the
Darian
Lions got
Arnold,
him. Yeah.
all these dudes that are stars on that team were
Drafted
drafted and
guys.
developed.
Yeah.
So if the Jags can't find that, I'm sorry. I like Christian Kirk, but even when we signed him, it was like, okay, well, is this guy?
They paid a tax because they had to. To sign
And I
Christian
get it,
Kirk, they had to overpay.
and I get it, and I don't care about overpaying for good players. Really, I really don't. It's
They
just
promised Eric Armstead 10 years into his career he'd play end.
in the modern NFL, you cannot go grab veterans and put together you need veteran experience. Those need to be a factor of the team, but every top level team in the NFL right now drafted like half their starting lineup, if not more, are draft
What
guys.
did the
So,
Dolphins pay Calais Campbell for this year versus what the Jags spent on Eric Armstead? And Calais is balling.
dude, it was so much fun watching him this past Sunday.
He's
That was
just
awesome.
balling.
Dude,
Everybody's
it's really cool. It's insane to be 38 years old and just balling like that.
yeah. Well,
I
he knows who
really,
he is, that he knows what his position is, and he just plays the hell out of it, you know?
Calais Campbell is making $2 million this year, by the way.
Yeah, do the math.
$2 million.
Yeah. We're
And
going to get
Eric
out of here.
Armstead's making 10
Yeah.
times as much or
Yeah, I'm
whatever.
about to
But
get the
yeah.
bleach out. So
All
we're gonna
right.
get on out of
Yep.
here, I think. But
No, yeah, it's getting depressing. And that's my
we're
fault.
gonna keep doing this. We're gonna
Yeah,
keep
dude.
pushing through, gang. We're here for
It's
you.
it's it's like man versus food when that dude would be like on like pound 4
Yeah.
of the greasiest burger you've
And
ever
now he's
seen.
got to eat the 3 pounds of fries after eating the
Yeah, we're not
17-pound
even. Yeah,
burger.
we haven't even hit the fries yet,
No, we're not even to the
and they
fries.
didn't put down any
The
ketchup for us.
milkshake,
So,
you got to finish off too in the
oh my
challenge.
god.
Yeah. Oh, Ev, it was fun anyway, my man.
Yeah,
Always great
having a
catching
good
up.
time.
Yeah, commiserate. This is
Yeah,
called commiserating.
absolutely.
So for Evan, I'm Travis. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, we hope you'll do that even after what you just heard for the last 38, 39 minutes. It's therapeutic for us anyway.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's
we
therapy.
got ours, so it's all good. So for Ev, I'm Travis. Thanks for tuning in to No Sleep Teal. Until next week. So long, everybody.
Peace.